You are listening to episode 244 of Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators Podcast, we like to talk about games we've recently picked up, games we're currently playing, and we make it up in the back nine in this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
So this week we played a little bit of Mario Golf Advance Tour on the Gameboy Advance.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I had fun with this one.
Yeah, this was
I'm excited.
good.
Yeah, I had a good time with this one for sure, and we'll dive into it in the inflation deflation segment. But first, you can find us on the GameDeflators.com, our up-to-date website. You can find us on social media at Game Deflators on Twitter, at The Game Deflators on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, you can find us on the podcast app you're listening to right now, as well as YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review. Yeah.
Comments. Let us know. Tell us what you think, people.
Currently picking up and playing. Current pickups, recent pickups. Magic cards. That's what I got this week. I got Magic cards. So I've been in a little bit of a kick on that, kind of playing Magic the Gathering Arena. So that'll be my currently playing. But playing Magic, and I played my first tournament yesterday since September, like official, like standard tournament. And I got second place. So that was fun.
Your burn deck came out well. There wasn't like a lot of healing in just dudes decks.
So the only deck I struggled against was a deck that I should have struggled against, and that was Domain, which is apparently they put out a bunch of land and like ramp it up, and then they bring out like big nasty 8/8 creatures, but there's also control. So there's like 8 control spells in there to like exile stuff. So unless I can get things out fast enough, by the time it's like turn 6, they're already, or turn 5 really. By the time turn 5 hits, they've already got like a big 4/4 creature with vigilance, and the next turn after that, they're bringing out like 8/8s and 7/7s. You
just
so
don't have a board that can deal with that, and your spells are meant to kill the opponent, not be wasted on those creatures.
Yeah, and those creatures are just too big. Like if you looked at the metagame, like there's websites that'll show you, okay, like here is the deck that you're playing, and then here's all the other decks in the meta, and on a performance basis, it wins this percentage of the time, right?
Yeah.
So Burn wins like 53% of games usually. Like it's one of the top decks in the meta, and there are certain decks it performs really well against, and certain ones it doesn't perform well against. And Domain, in all of the matches it has so far that are recorded, it's like a 33% win rate. So, I mean, if you're playing, and a guy I played against is somebody I know, we played together for quite a while, the last few years or a couple of years. And so he knows my play style. I know his. And when he put out that deck, I'm like, I'm not winning this, man. I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, I know what you're playing. I know this is like like out of all of the decks in the meta, this is the worst matchup for me. And it happened to be in the finals. Like I was crossing my fingers that the guy that he had played before, who was 2-0, would have beat him. Because he was playing mono black, and I could have absolutely demolished mono black with Burn, no problem. In fact, I beat blue black, no problem. I beat red white, no problem. I beat black white, no problem. And then his Domain came out, and it just dude, it wrecked me. It was so bad. But everybody was pissed off that I was playing Burn, so it was fantastic.
That's the point of Burn, right?
That is the point of
Burn those bridges.
There was some kid that he was there, and he's like, you should feel bad about yourself. Like you should play a better deck, like something that takes more skill. And I'm like, why would I put more than $100 into Magic? Like your deck is like $250, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, mine cost me 20. Like I just paid for, like, out of the winnings I had for the tournament, I literally paid for my entire deck.
Yeah.
You know, like just out of those winnings alone. So it was totally worth it to play Burn. I think I'm going to play Mono Blue next, because that's maybe another like $30 for me to play Mono Blue. And then I might go something different after that. But for sure, like Mono Blue is probably my next.
What they give away as prize?
Store credit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I got like $15 store credit, and then I got a promo that was worth like $5.
Nice.
And I got some Magic the Gathering Arena promos.
So what do you do? Just like channel all of your winnings back into like the next tournament play?
No. So, I mean, I could have theoretically, but no, I got 3 packs out of it. So it's just like, give me some Dominator United, and I got some decent cards, nothing crazy. I got a mythic and like 3 rares out of the 3 packs. Like one of them had 2 rares in it, so it was kind of cool.
Nice.
Some decent uncommons, which was nice. And yeah, I got to open up some packs. So I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? I paid $6 and I got a $5 card out of the promo pack, and then I got 3 packs out of it for free at the end of the day, right? It's like I paid for the 1 card, and I paid $1 essentially to play Magic against people. So it was fun. I enjoyed myself. One of the guys I beat actually used to play on Pro Tour.
Nice.
So it was pretty cool. Yeah. So the other thing is, of course, I'm playing White Knight Chronicles. I got a little further into the City of Greed, and the next step is to have a meeting with like the king or governor of the city. So I have to go through with that and then move on to the next area. So I haven't played too much, just kind of enough to, I upgraded my weapons and my armor with the money I had, did what I needed to do to get to the next area. And now that's kind of where I'm at, is like getting to the next spot, basically. One thing I really do like about this game, because I'd put it down for like a week, right? With everything else going on. And I was like, God, what the hell do I have to do? I forgot. And so I got to a certain point and the characters stop and go, oh, the person that we're looking for might be located here. And so they tell you that person, like, hey, you're going the wrong way. Like, you should go over here. And so it's a reminder real quick, like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's where I'm supposed to go. And so I remember, like, I don't have to guess where I'm at and go read a tutorial to like recall where I might be and what has to happen. The characters immediately are like, we got to go to this location and go meet this person at a bar. So when I hop on later tonight, after I finish prepping our D&D for tomorrow, it'll pretty much be the same thing, like walk around and then it'll say, hey, you got to go over here.
One of my favorite features in like an RPG is when you start up a game, like you hit continue, and then it gives you like a recap of like the last few like big story things that you were doing to kind of get you back into it. There was like some Pokemon game that did that, and I was like, oh, sick. And then I'd seen it like in a couple other RPGs, and I think that's such a cool system that should be like regulated across RPGs, especially. Like, it makes so much sense because like there's so many times where like I mean, you know me, the king of not finishing games. Like, there's so many games that I would have likely gone back and played more or gotten further in if I had that feature, because like sometimes with an RPG, like if you just let it go for too long, it's like, okay, well, I might as well just start over because like I forgot how I was building my characters. I forgot like how some of this stuff was going. Like, I don't even know where to go right now or what my next objective is. And unless there's a way in game to find out, or like, party members that you could talk to that would refresh your mind of that, I just think that recap system is like a great way to have your RPG reintroduce the player back to what they were doing, whether it's been a day, a week, or a month, or even a year. Yeah.
I mean, some RPGs have that journal setting, right? Like, it kind of keeps track of like what's happened, and it just, oh, well,
quest log or something, maybe.
Yeah, we completed the mission of blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. And then it'll say the next place we have to go is X. So like, some of them have it, some of them don't. This one obviously has a different style. There's no log that I've seen, but it does have that feature of like, hey, you need to go to this location.
Mm-hmm.
And so it works out pretty well. But some of the other like Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy VII, that type of stuff, I don't recall there ever being like a feature of that nature, right? Like, you just kind of, I remember Final Fantasy VII, it was a couple things. So, and I've talked about on the podcast before, but like I had a situation where it bugged out on like the last place where Sephiroth was, like the final location where you battle is like final forms. And I was too low of a level, so I couldn't win. And this was the first time I'd ever played it. And I was trying to get out of a cave where he's located, and there was a glitch. It would not let me get out of the cave. So I had to start that game over. And I was so frustrated. Like, I started over, got to like midway through disc 2, and then set it aside for like literally 2.5 years, and then came back to it. But because it'd been so long, I completely forgot what the hell was going on. And so I'm like going city to city, talking to every single person I could think of, to just try and get some like semblance of like, oh yeah, you're supposed to go to this location right now. So
yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So what are you playing, or what did you pick up?
So I picked up Exoprimal, which
The hell is
is
that?
it's the one where the dinosaurs fall from the sky and you're fighting them in like Anthem suits.
Oh, sorry, Ryan. I had one more pickup I forgot to mention.
Yeah, you sure did.
You
didn't even write it down.
Yeah. Witcher 1, 2, and 3 on the Steam sale. So it cost me like $6 or something.
Nice.
Yeah, so I got those on PC. That's all. Continue.
Yeah, so I picked up Exoprimal. It was a day one release on Game Pass. It's a Capcom game where, I mean, you're in these like Anthem looking, Iron Man type suits, and dinosaurs just rain from the sky in like a waterfall. Like imagine fighting a waterfall of velociraptors charging at you.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty cool version of Doom and Turok.
Yeah, except for the fact that when I downloaded it, because I have Game Pass, and then I went to boot it up, it was like, hey, you need Game Pass Ultimate because regular
Why?
Game Pass doesn't come with the Xbox Live Gold, and you need Xbox Live Gold in order to play online games. And
so it's online only?
Yeah, it's online only. And I think I knew that going in, but I didn't realize, I guess, that Game Pass Ultimate was the only one that had Xbox Live Gold. I thought the advantage of Game Pass Ultimate was that it had like the PC Game Pass and included like the cloud. Because I had Game Pass Ultimate for most of the time that I've had Game Pass. But eventually I was like, I never use the cloud service and I'm not playing on PC. Why am I spending the extra $5? Like I might as well save $5 a month and just go with the basic Game Pass. Well, this is why. And I think it's really dumb that like it'll just let you download it and then try to upsell you once you get into there. Like it doesn't give you any like, hey, we know you can download this. Don't even think you can play it with the service you have subscription though. So
I mean, it's on purpose, obviously. Like,
yeah.
If they told you up front, oh, by the way, you need Xbox Ultimate, blah blah, to play this, you're already hyped, right? You're like, they're trying to get you in that gotcha moment where, oh, I downloaded it, I watched some videos, I'm super hyped about it. It's downloaded, it's installed, I can't wait to play it. You log in, it's like, nope, you can't. You need to pay $5 more.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really play much online games anymore, and this is also going to prevent me from doing that. So none of that is happening. I'll just go ahead and undownload that and watch some reviews and see what other people have to say about it. And, hey, that'll be it for me.
Yeah.
But I did play Pikmin.
Oh, it's a miracle.
Yeah, I know. I went out and I got my little blue Pikmin this morning and I was trying to, solve some puzzles and do some stuff. And it was a pretty good time, but I had to go do other things. So I will definitely be resuming my Pikmin play, hopefully, and continuing that along and finishing it, hopefully, soonish. I also have Darkness downstairs next to my PS3 plugged into the TV in the bedroom. So, maybe I will be getting around to that again or at all soon. I watched the trailer for it the other day, which I don't think I ever actually saw the trailer. But it was very,
trailer?
It was very like Sopranos because it's like a mob. It's like, tell my Uncle Paulie I'm coming for him or something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and just wait till you like come across the little darklings basically, and the humor and everything that comes from that, and then of course like some of the abilities and like the ways that you're able to kill other mobsters is fantastic. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. I think you will.
I'll have to get through these games, obviously one by the end of the summer and one by the end of the year. And with as hot as it is in Arizona, I don't think I'll be going outside and doing much. So I might as well resume gaming. It's not like I'm on a gaming podcast or anything. So I should probably do some more of that. I think the last 2 weeks, I just like hardly played anything at all. So, I don't know. Sometimes I just get in moods where I'm like, I've been watching a lot of old SGDQs and AGDQs the last couple weeks, and I find sometimes I just find so much catharsis in watching gaming that I forget about gaming myself, and it's just kind of easier to sit there and just kind of absorb and be in the moment watching really cool things than trying to do things myself, or whatever. I don't know, like Pikmin is one of those games that I was never really into the idea of playing for most of my life, because like I've always been the kind of gamer when there's like a timer involved in a thing, like it stresses me out and I don't like it and it seems like unfun. And like I remember being in high school and Pikmin coming out and just being like why do I want to play a game where it's like I literally could only play the game for so long? Like it takes me forever to get through games. I don't know how many times I've said that, like I spent 120 hours getting halfway through Elden Ring.
You could have beat Pikmin like 8 times over.
Yeah, so I think I just have some reserve sometimes, and obviously like I don't like finishing games, so that's a thing for me too. I just have these gaming, I don't know, things built up in my mind where I just don't finish or play games even as much as I like them. I wonder if anybody else has anything like that. If you do, let me know that I'm not alone in this, or if I'm just some kind of biological freak, I guess let me know that too.
For me with gaming, like if I don't finish a game, it's either I didn't like the game very much and I was like, I'm not playing this anymore, or I got busy and forgot and then put the game aside and then started playing another one and completely forgot that I had the other one going. Like South Park is one I still need to get to because I haven't finished it yet. The Stick of Truth. I'm so far into that game and I'm almost done, but I never did beat it. And I think a big part of that is because I was moving into the house I'm in now. So I was trying to play that time frame. It's like, oh yeah, we're buying a house. We're looking for homes. We're doing all this other stuff. And it just got put to the wayside and I just didn't pick it up again.
Yeah. So we should talk sometime. I know that we already have a discussion topic for this week, but maybe in a future episode, we can do a discussion topic where we talk about revisiting games and playing a game multiple times, because like Stick of Truth is one of those games where you pick your class at the beginning of the game, like so many games, and the developers are in the mindset of, oh, if you choose a class, then likely the replay value will be high for you to replay this as another class at a later time.
I'm pretty sure I chose the Jew class in that game.
Probably. That sounds up your alley.
Yeah, it does sound up my alley. I didn't choose a very difficult option though. I was not. I think, isn't the difficulty level by skin color?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. It was
very South Park.
Yeah, I think like if you go black, it's like this is gonna make your life super difficult. Not the game itself, just every other aspect of your life.
Something like that.
So yeah. And I think the Jew class is basically like bare bones. Like you don't get anything special, if I recall. Yeah, it's like a pauper, essentially.
You don't start with extra gold?
I think you do start with extra gold, actually. I don't remember, but I gotta look.
Give me a Jew gold, Kyle.
God, I love South Park. Okay, so discussion topic. I pitched this over to you, local multiplayer gaming of friends and family. So I don't know, figure we can kind of talk about the good old days of playing on a 24-inch big giant TV and putting a blanket with tape on one half of the split screen, and so one person could play on top and one person could play on the bottom.
I love that picture on the internet of the two guys, and one of them sitting on the floor, one of them sitting on the couch, and they've got like cardboard taped to the screen in between them. One's like got the cardboard on his head and he's playing on the lower screen.
Yeah, that used to be me and my brother. We did that. Not cardboard specifically, but blankets.
Yeah, you have a brother, so I'm sure that your local multiplayer experience is way different than mine, just because I had to go over to people's houses to play multiplayer local things. But I mean, once you got home, it was game on until bedtime or whatever.
Yeah, and we didn't just play first-person shooters. Like, we would play a lot of fighting games, and we'd do co-op. Like, we'd play two-player Donkey Kong and such. But the thing that really got us into fights when we were kids is like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and stuff like that, because one of us would be really good and the other one would normally be pretty bad. Or my brother had and he still has this tendency of, when playing games, cheesing moves. So I remember when we were little, like, we weren't the best players, but he would do an uppercut with his
Yeah.
characters all the time. That's all he would do is uppercuts. So no matter how close you got, it was uppercut. And then you go to try and attack him again, he'd uppercut you. And so like if you got just close enough to try and lay in the hit, then he would punch you and then he would uppercut you. So it was like it wasn't the type of experience in fighting games that you would want to play. It was like it wasn't fun because we're not going at it like trying moves and jumping around and all that. It was always I'm going to just sit here and uppercut you. And the same thing would happen with first person shooters. If we were playing Call of Duty or Halo or anything along those lines, he was always camping with a sniper rifle every time. So it just, I will say local play with my brother pissed me off more than, and that's probably why I got into RPGs, to be honest, because I got sick of playing multiplayer with them. The only thing that we never really had issues with was racing games, because it's pretty fair play in a racing game, right? You either get the items or you don't, and you race, right? But the other types of games, there's a way to make it unpleasant for the person you're playing with. And it wasn't a matter of like, oh, John was bad at video games. It was just a matter of annoyance, right? Like I wasn't bad at games. It was just play the damn game like it should be played, right? Like don't just sit there and camp because campers suck. Don't just sit there and uppercut because just uppercutting sucks, you know? Or when we would play Tekken, he would play as Eddie Gordo, right? Because Eddie Gordo was like the most crazy moves, right? You can never truly see where things are going. So like his character selection was always bad as well. Now,
He
when
was one of those guys that played Voldo and what's the
Soul Calibur?
Soul Calibur, yeah.
Yeah, he actually did.
That makes sense.
No, he 100% did. So you know how I combated that? I'd play Maxi because that was just as bad. Yeah. And I actually got really good with Maxi at the end of the day. But he was also the type of guy that would play with Raphael and do the stabby stab with his whatever the hell it's called. So yeah, his rapier. He would do a rapier thing. So that was a big thing there. But other local multiplayer, we would actually do Halo on LAN in the house, and we just had two TVs like back to back, or we would have it somewhere else in the home. So typically, I would actually play with Justin on Justin's side, and then Jordan would play on his own TV because Jordan would cheat all the time, right? So Justin and I, we would, look at each other's screens, but Justin and I were usually pretty good about not doing it. Whereas Jordan would just if he was in the same room as you, forget it, man. You could be hiding in some corner and he would be trying to find you, and that's it. He wouldn't even care. So yeah, I mean that was sibling and friend multiplayer growing up.
I mean, my biggest memories for local multiplayer gaming was renting Smash Bros every weekend, having sleepovers, and everybody just wrecking shop, doing that all night. I loved when I finally moved out of my house and I moved in with some friends. We played the Mortal Kombat, I think it was 2009 that came out. And that was just so good because everybody had, their own little roster of characters that they got good with. And it's I could beat your one character with this character, but then you'd swap over to this character and then I'd have to switch to my backup character. And that was just really good for having that experience of always being around people that were available to play certain things together. Local multiplayer is so great. And there was a huge resurgence, a number of years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I want to say, where local multiplayer games really started coming back in a strong way, because once the advent of Xbox Live came out, I mean, that changed the whole thing. There was no real emphasis on local multiplayer at that point. It was all about, hey, how many people can we get on a server to play games? Halo 2 was a huge game for just getting online. And I think that with local multiplayer games It Takes Two and a lot of the games by that studio too, Way Out. Yeah. Those types of experiences have really developed local multiplayer into not just, standard co-op taking turns or fighting side by side, but a way where you're progressing the story and doing things together, and asymmetrical co-op is way more of a thing than it ever used to be. I think that there's a really good future for those types of games, but we're in an ever evolving landscape where really those connections don't exist in that way. I don't imagine that a lot of kids today get home from school and run over to their friend's house to play a game like we did when we were growing up. Everybody just goes home and they log into Fortnite on their phone or their Xbox or their PC, and they could all play together because that's the game that all the kids are playing. So I don't know that it'll ever go away, but I do feel like even though it did try to have a big pushback, it's just fighting against a stream where it's just not really going to happen as much. And especially with, physical media kind of going away and everything becoming digital, and there being so many free to play games, there's just really not that need to have to go over to somebody's house and play something because they have it and you don't, or they have a system that you don't have. A lot of these things are so across platform and accessible to people that it's really driving people to just do their own thing at home and connect to people. And I feel like I've really missed out on a lot of that boat. I mean, gosh, 2.5 years ago, you and me, we were playing like a decent amount of Apex together. And then I got my new job and I just dropped off of Apex. You kept playing for like a decent chunk of time afterwards with other
I still
people.
pick it up every now and then.
Yeah, but I just completely dropped off. I've got no interest in social media. I've got almost no interest in online gaming. I don't know. I'm old man yelling at clouds now. I just see all these cool things that happen in the world, and I'm just like, I don't know. I got YouTube. What do I need with all this?
Yeah, it's kind of how I've been with Netflix and other stuff, and then One Piece, obviously. Like I binged. Now I'm on episode like 1062. I think
You're
is that
current, right?
Yeah, I'm week to week now on it. In fact, I'm ahead because I read the manga, so like I'm already past Wano.
I need to get
I'm
reading again. I downloaded so much of that. I downloaded like 30 chapters before I went to California a couple weeks ago and just never read any of it.
Are you reading it in the color version or black and white?
Oh, I've only ever read the black and white.
So I sent you a link a while back, I think, for color. Like there's a guy that actually colorizes all of the manga art.
That's so crazy.
Oh, dude, it's so good. Like reading it in black and white versus color, it's night and day, man. Like that's why I stopped reading it actually, because I was reading all the way in color, and then it was like maybe 10 chapters from like the color to the end of Wano. So I was like, all right, I'll just go ahead and read the rest right in black and white. And then when I got to like the next arc, I was like, I'm not gonna read this anymore. Like as good as it is, like if they came out, if he came out like next week, I was like, oh, I'm doing the last like 40 chapters of One Piece, I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and watch or read. But I know they're only like 65-70% the way through on the story last I checked. So like we got at least another 2 years of manga that we're going to be getting here.
Yeah, there's such a weird connect there where the manga is the original, but there's so much that's not in the manga. Like I used to go online, I don't even know if the guy still does it anymore, but I found a guy on YouTube who would post up voice clips.
There's still guys that do it,
like different characters in all the different dub languages, just so that I could hear what the characters sounded like, so that I wasn't making them all sound the same way in my head. But like the Sniper King song, like I had to look that up on YouTube because I heard people talk about it, and I was like, what? I don't have any context for this. Or like Brooks' whole character is that he's a musician, but you just don't really get any of that like really coming through when you're just reading the manga. And there's so much beautiful color in that world that you don't see, despite how amazing the manga looks. And I don't feel like it's necessarily something that you're losing out on, because you are getting the original intent from the creator when you are reading the manga. I mean, that's the purest form, but even that is lacking in so many things that make it more rich and vibrant. And I wonder if sometimes, going back and watching the anime would be something to do, but I'm never going to really go back and do that. I mean,
It's
I watched as much of that as I did and dropped off of it, and I barely got back into the manga, and now I'm still hundreds of chapters behind there. And
when
I
did
was the
you
first person I knew who was into it.
when did you drop off on the anime? Was it Whole Cake Island?
No, I dropped off in the anime right after they dropped out of Skypiea and they fall into that marine base that doesn't exist in the manga.
Yeah, which is actually that's a pretty good like filler arc. I actually like that one. Man, you dropped out like right when it starts getting like really good.
Yeah, that's
You
me.
know, like
I give up on things like bringing it back to Final Fantasy VII. You couldn't get out of the Sephiroth cave. I don't even think I ever put disc 3 in my PS1. I think I was just like, well, I don't want to go raise a golden chocobo to get Knights of the Round and cast that 19 times to beat Sephiroth, so I'm done with this game.
oh, I didn't need to. I had like Omni Slash and everything else. Dude, I got Omni Slash disc 1 in that game. My second playthrough, I was like, screw this. Like, I'm just gonna get Omni Slash now, so things are easier.
Yeah.
So back to One Piece really quick though. So the dub is actually almost caught up to the sub. So what I'm gonna do is when Wano is finished and I finish watching in Japanese, I'm gonna actually rewatch it in English. So because I think English stopped at like episode 914 when I started watching in Japanese, and I want to say it's at like 980 already. So by the time Wano finishes, it should be like not too far off, and then I can continue watching in Japanese. But I really want to watch Wano in English.
John, we're a month and a half away from the Netflix release of One Piece. Did you know
That
that?
actually looks. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Dude, me too. I think that the fact that Oda was involved and the fact that it's got all this Netflix money behind it. I mean, people think that Netflix is trying to position this as possibly their Game of Thrones type title because there's just so much that they can mine there if they can get people into it. And there's such an untapped audience. Like, if they can do it well enough to where people won't just violently backlash against it online like they tend to do, I think it stands a decent chance of being okay. And I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to Avatar: The Last Airbender live action too. I've only seen
Oh,
images. I don't think.
original creators dropped out of this one too, so I have a feeling it's not going to be good.
Oh, we'll find out. I mean, did they drop out of it because they didn't like the direction, or they dropped out because they just dropped out?
I think it was disagreements with production.
Oh, gotcha. Well, we'll find out. It can't be any worse than the live action movie. All right. Let's dive into some articles here. So the first one is the Federal Appeals Court rules that Microsoft can close its Activision merger, and that's Brian Fung at CNN. So yeah, basically the FTC lost its fight. Last I checked, they went into the appeals court, and I guess that's what we're looking at here. And the FTC apparently lost that as well.
Yep.
When I saw a recent thing, but then I saw another comment by I think it's Tom Warren at Verge. I've been looking at all the updates he has, and he said it's actually technically not over. There's a period of time where like Microsoft can close, but the FTC can still go back and do something about it and continue the fight, basically, which is a whole other thing.
Well, at that point, they're trying to like unwind an already closed deal, which is, I think, a much bigger burden of proof on them to try to overcome. And the fact that they've already failed to do it in court and then failed to get an appeal, I just don't see much hope of them being able to do that. And I do say hope because I'm still kind of torn here. I mean, I am so unbelievably happy that this is going to be over with, so we can spend the next 9 months instead talking about Switch 2 rumors, because you know how much I love talking about that. What, like 2 years ago now?
Hey, PS5 Pro rumors too. Don't worry, we'll have others.
God, yeah. These news articles that we have to talk about month after month for like a year, I'm just so done retreading the same stuff over. And I share in choosing the articles, but it's just the thing to talk about.
Hey, I mean, while we're on a Switch 2 rumor, did you see also that apparently there's leaks that Microsoft is working on a new Call of Duty that will be on the new Switch, which confirms that the Switch will be released in spring of 2024? I don't know if you saw that, but that's what I saw. All right, back to our Microsoft merger.
if Nintendo can send Activision Switch 2 prototype to work on it so that they can get a game developed, and Sony is not willing to do so, I guess that's Sony's own fault at that point. They're the ones who are shorting their customers.
Well, remember, Nintendo's not competition.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I just think that
realistically, a Switch 2 is going to be about as powerful as a PS4.
Yeah. I mean, that'll still be incredible. Like, we've never had a PS4 in your hand unless you count like the Steam Deck, but I don't know if that's really PS4 level.
Well, it could play PS4 games, Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch, and everything else under the sun. So I would say it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of why they're like, oh, Microsoft and Sony or Nintendo doesn't compete with them. And it's kind of true, right? Like, despite everything that's going on with this merger, Nintendo is kind of on its own little island. And
yeah, their own little island that's a giant Pac-Man eating all the other competition.
Technically speaking, Sony actually generates more revenue in gaming than Nintendo does.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just still like the fact that Nintendo only makes games and can stand alone against Sony, who makes just about every appliance you could want, and Microsoft that makes the operating system for, 70% of the computers in the planet.
Well, and everything else that they do as well. Like, they do so much already. But yeah, I guess, kind of looking at this, and the thought was crossing my mind earlier. So what is Sony going to do, right? What is Sony's response? And you could probably look up an old episode. I don't know when I would have said it, but I do recall saying it's open season now for acquisitions, right? Like, if Microsoft is able to close on this, then Sony is very easily going to be able to close on something like Square Enix. And I think that's a very viable option for them. If they bought Square Enix, you're taking away, tons of different types of RPGs that could be going to Xbox.
You're not, though. Like, I've seen this exact argument made by other people online. And the thing that they have brought up in this is that Square already doesn't release anything for Xbox. And they're already partnering with Sony to develop these games. There's really no financial reason for Sony to go out and spend that money. They're already partners. Like, it wouldn't get them anything else that they don't already have. It would just cost them money.
It's more so, if you think about it from this lens, they're going to make money off of Nintendo, right? And I can see Sony continuing to release Square Enix games on Nintendo consoles and then getting the money.
They already released all the old games on Nintendo. They don't have any more old games to re-release there. And they're not going to make Final Fantasy 16 work on the Switch.
They have remakes that they can do. Plenty of remakes. And there's
plenty but those remakes aren't coming out there. They're only coming out on PlayStation.
There's plenty of games that Square has made over the years, and ones that were never brought over West that they could totally redo.
They already didn't release the Final Fantasy VII remake on there when they weren't partners. Like, if they purchased them, why would they all of a sudden have incentive to release those games on Nintendo? It wouldn't make any sense.
The remake was never going to work on the Switch anyways. The remake was on PS4 Pro, and it's on PS5. So that's not going on Switch regardless. But
yeah, so if they're releasing another Switch that's only going to be as powerful as the PS4, that's going to be a whole generation ahead. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see a reason that they would buy a company so that they could not make them exclusive in a situation where they're already pretty much exclusive.
Part of it would be a defensive move against Microsoft, though, because what would stop Microsoft from jumping in and buying Square?
They can't.
Why can't they? They
because
technically
Square
can.
Would never sell to them.
If the money's right,
they're already not releasing their games on their platform anyways.
Yeah, because they're getting money from Sony. But say the money is right. Say Microsoft says we'll throw double your valuation your way.
You don't think that Microsoft's already gone to Square Enix and said, "Hey, we'll give you a bunch of money, like just to release your game on our platform at all," and they
I
haven't.
mean, they
Like
just
the
spent
only
70. They just spent 70 billion on Call of Duty and all those other IPs.
yeah, I think
I mean,
I
if you take away Square Enix, if you're Microsoft and you somehow are able to throw, say it's triple valuation and you completely rip RPGs away from PlayStation, what does PlayStation have at that point? They have their own IPs, but Final Fantasy is like, it's a staple since the PS1,
yeah, but the
right?
thing is, like, those don't do the kind of numbers that you would want anyways. I mean, it's not a Call of Duty. It's not
No,
like
definitely
people
not.
are like breaking down the door for old school RPGs or even new RPGs. Like, that's much more of a niche audience and genre that I just don't think the money's there. Like, if I was Sony and I really wanted to do a blow,
You want
I would go
Rockstar.
after, I mean, yeah, Rockstar would be the one, but I mean, Rockstar makes so much money, they don't have any incentive to sell out to anybody anyways. But I would go for the other RPGs. Like I would go for um
The
e-
Trails series, Exceed.
Persona,
Yeah.
cuz Persona's already, they've got deals with Microsoft, and that's probably the best leg that Microsoft has to stand on in that market. So if you could take that away from them, that would be something that could deal a blow. I mean, plus, they make so many other good games too besides just Persona.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to take like even like, dude, I mean, Sega's got a great relationship, and Sega wouldn't sell. But if you could get like a Sega or like a Bandai Namco or something like that, if
Yeah.
you're Sony, that's a huge response and a huge blow to the rest of the market. But it might be harder to close if you're Sony, right? Because apparently Sony is, because they're the market leader and they have such a foot, like a stake in the overall like market. Microsoft is able to close. But I think if this technically leveled the playing field, right, then again, it's open. It's open season for everything. So we'll see what happens here. I imagine Sony will have some sort of response here in the next year or so,
Yeah, I mean,
or
we'll
within a
definitely
year.
see what comes of this, but
Yeah. Well, looking at all this, so the FTC trial actually had nearly 1 million documents and that were, displayed throughout the entire process. And they could not catch Microsoft saying one time that they would make Call of Duty exclusive. And this is Rebecca Valentine at IGN that wrote this one. And I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Like, you provide that many documents and you can't catch one time Microsoft saying they're going to make it exclusive. But I mean, we've talked about it, right? There's no reason for them to make Call of Duty exclusive. Everything else, though, very much will probably be exclusive. Like, I mean, Prototype is one game right off the bat that if that was to
Prototype?
get yeah, Prototype. It's basically like an answer to Spider-Man. There's people that are actually, trust me, there's a group of people, a large group that would love to see Prototype re-released.
Is there
You
really?
also, yes, there is actually. So yeah, Prototype is an option there. That could be an answer to Spider-Man. Of course, you have all the Guitar Hero games, everything that was tied to that. Tony Hawk games. There's a new game coming out that could be exclusive.
I don't think
Uh,
Prototype is a competitor to Spider-Man.
Prototype was actually put out as like a competitor to Infamous, which was kind of tied in due to Spider-Man. It's a very sandbox type game, lots
Yeah,
of
but
gore.
Spider-Man is like Spider-Man. He's a Marvel giant,
So
recognizable worldwide
s-
icon IP. Prototype was
speaking
like a 3 release game last seen in 2009.
speaking of
And
Spider-Man,
that
though,
came out on every platform.
it did back then, but now it can come out on only Xbox. So, and also speaking of Spider-Man, there are Spider-Man games, and we talked about this before, that Activision actually owns because they developed them and released them and such. So I
But
could
that's
very
rights
well,
contracts. Like the rights to re-release those games aren't owned if you don't have an existing contract that's currently open. And
well,
those are going to be like probably super expensive, and I mean, to try to out Spider-Man, Naughty Dog.
I mean, it's existing games, so it's not like you're out Spider-Maning Naughty Dog. You're just releasing existing games. So I don't know all the specs behind that, right? I don't know if
Insomniac.
they're allowed to. Oh yeah, Insomniac. Sorry.
Why did I say Naughty Dog?
I don't know, and you got me confused too. So I mean, they're
Sorry.
both Sony-based companies for the most part, but I mean, look, it's a Spider-Man game, right? If there's no other Spider-Man, all the Spider-Man games, if you look at them now that are on like 360 and Xbox One and all those other consoles, they're all actually pretty high priced because those are the most recent Spider-Man games that you can get your hands on for those systems. So if they were to re-release, an older Spider-Man in, say, HD upgrade, that actually might do okay on the Xbox. I think so.
That doesn't seem like. I mean, I think the bigger piece of the puzzle here isn't going back to old IP like that. It's going to be looking forward to new IP because they're
yeah.
contractually obligated at this point to release Call of Duty for 10 years on other platforms. But I mean, whatever is going to be the next big piece of the puzzle for Blizzard. I mean, people are
StarCraft.
people are so over Overwatch and what they've done to that if Microsoft could give them a shot in the arm to maybe try to go back and do what they failed to do twice and make Overwatch 2 an actual successor and make an Overwatch 3 that would be exclusive to Xbox and PC, that could have a real shot at some real benefit to them. I mean, I'm looking forward to I've really wanted to play Diablo, but I hate Activision and Blizzard and everything they stand for and Bobby Kotick, so I was never gonna buy that. But if it's on Game Pass, I mean, I'm already paying for that, so I might as well check out Diablo 4 finally if they put that on there. So it'll be an interesting next couple of months to see how quickly things start to release on there. But realistically, it's going to be like you said, the next StarCraft, and that's not even going to really be a
It's in
console thing
development.
anyways.
No, well, I mean, it could be technically, but it's in development.
Yeah, but nobody's going to want to play it there. That's a mouse and keyboard game. You need
Oh.
actions per minute that you can't do on a controller to make that game worth doing.
It's going to be on Game Pass regardless. So,
yeah,
you're either going to play it with a mouse and keyboard on your TV or you're playing it with a mouse and keyboard on your monitor one way or another.
Yeah, that's true. If you could just Bluetooth up a mouse and keyboard to your TV and do cloud gaming, then yeah, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So sky's the limit on that.
This next one sucks.
Yeah. So a study finds around 87% of games are unplayable without resorting to piracy, scavenger hunts, or traveling into an archive. And this is Harvey Randall at PC Gamer. I actually saw this one, and it kind of calls them extinct or endangered. And I'm like, this goes into your video game preservation, Ryan. I mean, you like to preserve games on a week-to-week basis. I think, in fact, you did it this week as well. But it's crazy that there's that many games. And it goes back to a little bit to our discussion on like Square, right? And you're saying, oh, well, they've re-released whatever, right? That's not entirely true. There's tons of games that were in Japan or in PAL regions only that didn't make it to the West. Or really to make it to North America. And those are all things that could be re-released in HD upgrades or remakes or remasters, whatever it needs to be. So, I mean, when you really consider it, and this is kind of what Rue does too, right? If there's games that are no longer playable or they were unfinished, whatever it may be, people like Rue are coming in and like re-releasing these old titles. And we also saw some limited run games recently. Tomba, Jurassic Park, all of these older games, like they're making it more accessible to play some of these games.
Did you read the article?
This one? Yeah, I read it the other day. I read a different one. I didn't read this specific article.
Yeah, so I mean, the video game, what are they? The VGHF, the Video Game History Foundation.
Yeah.
They did a study themselves where they went back and they looked at how many games are completely inaccessible to the public without having to, like it says here, either travel to an archive, pirate, or pay expensive, sales on the secondhand market for these titles. And the fact that they even included games that are re-released but changed so much that they don't reflect the original enough that those are considered not the same game anymore. So with a lot of those updates, you're losing a lot of what made those games by polishing away the edges and getting rid of the mistakes. And anytime that you try to reintroduce a game, you can never have just a straight one-to-one port that's just going to be, you know, incredible and not have any problems and not generate its own problems. But the handling of these games and the way that we think, oh yeah, you know, Nintendo, they do a pretty good job. They've got their, you know, Nintendo online that you can subscribe to, and you get a handful of games for a handful of consoles. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the actual numbers of games that are just completely inaccessible. And I guess to what you were saying, you know, especially games that were only released in certain markets, when you look at the amount of games that are out there that people just can't even play, and how that's treated versus other media being treated. Like, this was the first time I ever heard that you could go online and rent books and movies from the library. The last time I went to a library, my teacher took the whole class there. So I found that to be pretty interesting. But apparently the ESA, in all of their great wisdom, has decided, no, the games industry is doing a fine enough job of this on their own, and denied those equal protections to games that are presented to other media. And it's just another example of video games not being treated the same as other media and being singled out in one way or the other. You know, whether it's like we talked about last week, again, being blamed for violence, or in this case, you know, not allowing people to access them because it's not in the game market's best interest. And I think preservation and history is not in the best interest of the creators, it's in the best interest of the public. And that's for a reason. I mean, these online archives exist in a sense. I mean, not to the way where they could just flip a switch to where you could just go and access them, but they should exist in a way where people can have access and not have to, you know, make a whole trip to go out to an archive to play an on-site copy of Little Samson, because you can't afford to buy one and play it yourself. Like, it's completely unreasonable for, you know, corporations to just continue to hoard IP and just continue to hoard all this stuff and just say nobody else gets access to it because we need it for tax breaks and write-offs and all these other reasons, and just whatever, we're just going to sit on it. Go ahead and buy it on the secondhand market if you really want it. Like, it's
Yeah, I
so
mean,
unfair.
yeah, and I totally get it. I mean, and the thing is, like you said, without resorting to piracy scavenger hunts, traveling to an archive, right? Technically, they're accessible, right? When you think about the grand scheme of things, yeah, 87% they're not playable without resorting that stuff, but they are accessible. You know, you just have to know the right people if you don't have that type of
That's not
knowledge, or
accessible.
it's totally accessible. You can go online right now, like you said, go to an archive. You can go to,
No, you could go online and pirate games,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
but
saying.
that's
So
not legal.
I know there's a difference between accessibility and not being able to access whatsoever. Be like Disney lock and key in the vault. It's not seen.
Well,
Like, you
okay,
remember?
we're talking like not just the ability to pirate, because everything's available through piracy.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that, like, accessibility, it's still, if you really wanted to play this 80% of games and dive into this mass archive, you could still technically do it, but to the point of the article, without resorting to piracy, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that if there's anybody listening out there and you feel like, oh, I really want to play Little Samson, to your point, right? I really want to play Little Samson, but it's $2,000 for a copy. Go pirate the shit.
Yeah, raise
I
those
mean,
flags, baby. Hit the high seas.
like, at that point, like, who gives a shit? You know,
And they're not
like,
going to come after you. I mean,
no,
just make sure you're protected from your ISP.
Yeah, I mean, well, really, it's the people that are actually uploading it that are like, unless you were selling it or you were somehow profiting off of a downloaded version of Little Samson, like I think you're okay for the most part. Okay, well,
This one,
speaking of like prices, right? Gaming fans are baffled by Nintendo pricing. This is G Grecon, I guess. Tom Chapman of G Grecon.
GG
Um,
Recon.
GG Recon. Okay. Well, the recon should be capitalized.
Sorry.
Um, so I mean, I don't know if that's your fault or whatever, but I've
No,
never heard of
I
this.
just took it out of the web address there.
Yeah, I've never been to GG Recon, so I wouldn't know. It was very confusing. I was like, who's the name of the guy? Maybe it's like his own blog or something. All right. So basically, this I was reading this a little bit earlier today, before we hopped on. So yeah, this one just kind of goes into like I love the meme. Like just kind of start it
Yeah.
off, right? Purchase a Nintendo game for $50 or wait 10 years and purchase a Nintendo game for $60.
It's Mario doing the Drake meme with the hand by the
Yeah.
side and then the looking with the finger out.
Yeah. So I mean, when you look at Nintendo games, it's correct, right? Like they for whatever reason there are games that were released in 2017, I think it noted, Zelda, Odyssey, all of that. They do get discounts under $40 pretty consistently throughout the course of the year. They just had buy one get one free deals, as a matter of fact, through GameStop for new titles. But the price points are always $60, $50 are always when they were released price point. And it's not until Nintendo typically switches consoles that those games go down in price. And so it's super disappointing. I mean, as a fan of video games, and just to see that Nintendo kind of takes this first party approach, and it's a cultural thing too that was broken out as well. Like the Japanese do not see discounts in the
That's
same
what they
manner as
said.
other countries, which I don't know if that's entirely true.
But Sony games go on discount like
Exactly.
super quick. Like unless
Exactly.
Nintendo is just truly their own culture, like
I think
I don't
Nintendo's its
buy
own
that.
culture. Yeah, exactly. That's why I was like, that doesn't seem right, because like, why would that be a Japanese cultural aspect when Sony is completely Japanese owned, right?
I agree with the sentiment though that the hard work that you put into a thing should stand forever. Like the hard work and effort you put in doesn't diminish because the quality of the game doesn't diminish. And I mean, that's so true of these Nintendo titles. You can look at a Nintendo title that's decades old and see what makes it great. Whereas you can look at, so many games from the mid 2000s that are just all different shades of brown. And you're like, wow, that didn't age well.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo games, they hold up, right? They're always fun. I mean, we still play games on Super Nintendo, 64, GameCube, and Wii and stuff because we find them to be fun, and they've held up over the years,
Have
and
we
that's
ever played a
great.
Wii game on the show?
Yeah, we played Dewey's Adventure
Oh, and
before.
the
We played
Kiwi game.
in a Kiwi game. We played some Wii games, and I think, did we play Zack and Wiki? I don't think we did. We've played a few. We should probably play more actually, because there's plenty of good ones out there. And I think we played a couple Wii U. I don't think we've done much on Wii U. Rodea Sky Soldier, I think, was one we did as well. So yeah, I mean, just kind of, they hold up, right? It makes sense that they're pricing, and Nintendo knows what they got, and they know their fan base. I've said this tons of times. I say this on forums as well. Like, Nintendo doesn't give a shit about its consumers. Nintendo knows that if Nintendo could fart in a jar and put Nintendo on it, and Nintendo fans will go crazy and buy it.
I mean,
I
look
mean,
at
that's
Mario
just,
Kart 8. How long have they been selling that game for? And
yeah.
it's always like near the top sales charts.
It was released on the Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
And the Wii U version is probably like $20-$30 still in the secondary market. Nintendo fans will buy anything. And Nintendo knows that. And Nintendo knows it doesn't need to drop its price point because Nintendo fans are still going to buy it at the full price and they can get away with it. Right? Sony, not really. And they've been discounting their games for years, but their games sell like gangbusters out the door right off the bat. And then they drop the price over time and they sell more units. But if you were to buy those games digitally, those games are actually full price digitally, but so are Nintendo, and so is Microsoft for the most part, if they have anything that they're selling other than Game Pass. So yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of it. That's Nintendo pricing, and I don't get why fans are all of a sudden baffled Like, this has been a thing for years.
Yeah,
This
well, I
isn't
mean, that's
new.
the thing. There's new Nintendo fans all the time, and with Tears of the Kingdom being the first $70 game, but Metroid Prime remake coming out for less than full price. I think that was like a $40 game,
I mean,
or was that a
technically, I think
$60 game?
if you look back at the Super Nintendo, I think there were some $70 games released back then. I know for
Well,
this
yeah, I mean
generation,
that
it's
was back
first.
before we kind of had the across
Yeah,
the board standard pricing.
yeah. But yeah, I think Metroid is 40 when it came out.
Yeah, it
So
is.
I don't know if
So
there's
it's just
anything
it
else
just
that.
seems like a while. I get the idea that that was a complete ground up remake with amazing graphics, and then Tears of the Kingdom looks exactly the same as Breath of the Wild almost, and it just
Mhm.
seems like it's kind of all over the place. But I mean, we haven't always been in a market where games were all the same price, and I mean, with indies being what they are, there is a pretty wide range of titles and prices. So moving forward into the next gen Switch, like, will they all be $70 first party releases? I mean, with Nintendo's attitude and ability to make it happen, I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, continuing our discussion on Nintendo games, our inflation deflation this week is Mario Golf Advance Tour. So it was developed by Camelot Software Planning, published by Nintendo, directed by Yoshihiro Taguchi. It was released in June of 2004. And it is a sports role playing game. Yes, role playing. Reception is about an 8 out of 10 on the get go. So in Mario Advance or Mario Golf Advance Tour, you can experience all of the fun of golf with your favorite characters from the Mushroom Kingdom. And you can hit fantastic courses in a variety of locales while learning tips and tricks and interacting with locals at the clubhouse. So, the one thing that they don't mention in that synopsis is that you're actually playing as like a human character that's not from the Mushroom Kingdom, but there are elements throughout the game that are Mushroom Kingdom focused. Like, I found the one up that allowed me to increase my stats while I was playing the game. So, Ryan, if you want to dive into a little deeper here on the gameplay and what you experienced.
Yeah, so this is a game that I never experienced. It's one of those games on the GBA, and this happens a lot with Camelot games. Like, if you've ever played the Golden Sun games, you'll remember these games that are like, wow, that's a Game Boy Advance game. Like, holy cow, does this look good for what it was put out on? Like, the same thing that Pokemon was on, this was on, and it just looks incredible. uh it's a RPG where you are starting off as a trainee golfer, and you are taken with your fellows to the oh gosh, what was it? The
The
Marion
golf resort.
Marion Golf Course, or club resort, or whatever. I forget what they called it, but yeah, and you go through the story of learning how to be a pro golfer and competing against all these people that are not Nintendo characters, it seems like, and then eventually you'll be able to play with other Nintendo characters. Your ultimate challenge to be the best golfer, just like Mario was. So you and your friends go in, and you're going to be doubles partners, or you're going to take the singles tour by storm and just learn how to golf. And I mean, for the most part, we can kind of say it's a golf game.
Yeah.
You get that experience of golf top down, controlling the swing of your club, angling against the rolling of the hills and the angle of the wind to try to get the best shots and get the lowest score. It's great. And I had never played this, but I have really played and loved Golf Story, which was an indie game that was released, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I played that on the Switch, and it has all the DNA from this, but with a lot more humor involved with it, I would say. Um, and kind of a different tone, because it's not kind of sterilized Nintendo kind of thing. But yeah, there's something about the marriage of sports and growing and RPGs that works really well, because in a lot of sports games, I mean, you play it over and over for the sports, but that reward of growing and bettering your character simulates that journey of growing as a player and getting better at the sport as well. And it also gives you more reward for investing time in and getting through, which, you know, traditionally would be a place where you would get unlockables or things like that. But that combination of things goes so well together. And I hate that nowadays that experience is so tarnished by cards and stupid gambling mechanics and things like that in order to get better. Like if you want to get better in FIFA, you've got to gamble and hope that you get a better player card that will just have a better version of that character that you like. And you can't just get better yourself and then through play make that character better. Like that's the whole soul of this game and why it's so fun and obviously well remembered. I'd heard about this, and the I think the tennis games on GBA are similar to this in that same way. And it just seems like such a fun and great marriage of those two things, that this is a game that if I had started playing it at a different point, I would probably have been really invested and played a lot more of this. It's definitely a game I'm going to leave on my Game Boy and probably revisit in the future, I would say. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. I played a full 18 holes of Yoshi as well. And then I went into story mode and played a little bit of that. There is some gambling. There is actually slot machines that you play as you are trying to hit different holes or, you know, putt into different holes and such. So there's that. And then there was like some training stuff on like trying to get it onto the green perfectly, you know, in a circle. Little things of that nature. There was practice mode, tons of stuff, areas that you couldn't go to yet because you got to unlock it and whatnot. So it was really interesting from that piece. And then the overall like golf feeling in playing a full blown like 18 holes with Yoshi was very fluid for me. Like it was just like playing any other really good golf game. And as far as cartoony golf games, I don't play Tiger Woods and all that, but I'll put up some hot shots and play some Mario Golf on the GameCube and such. And this felt really good. So I was happy with it. Graphically on the GBA, you're right. It was fantastic. In fact, I'm kind of considering putting it on the Retron 5 so I can put it on TV.
Yeah, I was imagining that's how you would be playing it.
I actually played on an original GBA. I didn't even play on an SP because I can't find my charger. So I played with the very dim screen that's not as good as a bright screen. So that was interesting. But getting into brass tacks on this game, so a complete in-box copy will run you $55. It peaked at $61.38 in June of 2021, like everything else. That's trending down. A loose copy is going to run you $27.32 for, and this is the regular version, not for resale version, because that's what I have, and that's like $35. But this regular version peaked at $34.35 in September 2021, like everything else. It is trending up right now, though, as a loose copy. If I had to give this like a general rating, I would actually put this at an 8 out of 10 as far as golf games are concerned. As far as a loose copy, though, if I was going to pick it up, I mean, I would think $25 is fair. I think 27, you know, I'd actually go just right personally. You know, $25 would be a good deal, but a couple bucks extra, I think that's still fair for what you're getting here.
See,
it's a very well-produced game.
Golf Story is $15 on Nintendo Switch, and while that's 9-hole golf instead of 18-hole, I just think that the innovations and the ability to play a very similar type game, but with a lot more modernization and some other aspects that I think are really great. I would say that I would think that this is inflated because that's just such a great alternative for people and more accessible.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, although that is like a digital game, so it's not like something that you'll own forever and will appreciate. So
I think you can get it physically.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, pretty sure you can. I think it had a limited run release.
Okay.
And I think it had a re-release as well for like super rare games, if I recall. But yeah, I think you can get that physically.
Oh yeah, that's 91. So
yeah.
So okay, then I would definitely go with this.
Yeah, so from a physical standpoint, if you're collecting physical, this is just right.
Yeah.
If you're going physical. If you're going digital, you could probably get this. I mean, you played in video game preservation accessibility mode. So, I mean, it's
free 95.
$3.95, right? Or
$3.50 on sale.
So I think this is just right based on, the one you referenced. Yeah, digitally, great. Download it, but you don't hold it forever. This one you do. And if you want a physical of the other one, $90. So I think this is fine.
Yeah. I'll go with you just right.
Look at that. I changed your mind right on the spot. Good stuff.
You did. Well, actually, limited run being $91 now changed my mind.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I don't know what we're playing next week, but we'll figure it out as always. Maybe GBA again, maybe NES, maybe Atari. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have a special guest on. We can figure that out too.
Anything could happen.
Anything can happen on the Game Deflators podcast. But with all of that said, this has been episode 244 of Game Deflators podcast. My name's John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.